They say a child changes everything. They're right. But sometimes the change comes with a price written in blood and regret. Minho stood in the doorway of the small restaurant, frozen. The winter air bit at his back, but he couldn't feel it. All he could see was her, Sora, the woman he'd thrown out of his life 2 years ago. And in her arms, bundled against the cold, was a boy. His boy. The child had his eyes, that same dark intensity that had made Minho the most feared man in Seoul's underworld. The child he'd ordered her to get rid of. The words he'd screamed that night still echoed in his memory. "I don't want a kid! Get rid of it, now!" He could still see the way Sora's face had crumbled, the way her hand had instinctively moved to her stomach, protective even then. He'd been cruel. Deliberately, viciously cruel. Because that's what men like him did when they were afraid. But Sora hadn't listened. And now, watching her laugh as she wiped soup from the boy's chin, Minho realized she'd saved them both. If you want to know how a monster learns to be human again, stay with me. Because this story doesn't start with redemption. It starts with destruction. 2 years and 3 months earlier, Sora had stood in Minho's penthouse office, her hands trembling as she held the positive pregnancy test. She'd worked as his housekeeper for 8 months. 8 months of careful distance, of pretending not to notice the way his eyes followed her, of ignoring the electricity that sparked between them when their hands accidentally touched. Until one night, after an assassination attempt left him bleeding on his marble floor, she'd stitched his wounds with steady hands, and he'd kissed her with desperate ones. One night had become several. Several had become a secret that lived in the dark hours when his empire slept. "I'm pregnant," she'd whispered, and the world had stopped. Minho had been standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city he controlled. 43 floors below, people lived ordinary lives, unaware that their safety, their businesses, their very existence operated at his pleasure. He'd built this empire from nothing, clawed his way up from the streets where his father had died, owing men worse than Minho had become. Children were weakness. Children were leverage. Children were targets painted on your back, begging your enemies to pull the trigger. "No," he'd said simply, not turning around. "Minho, please," I said no. His voice had been ice. "Get rid of it. I'll pay for the procedure. I'll give you extra money for your trouble. But I will not have a child." Sora had stood there for a long moment. He could see her reflection in the window, ghostly and small. "I can't do that." "Then you're fired." He'd finally turned, and he'd made sure his face showed nothing. No regret, no conflict, just cold dismissal. "Pack your things. I want you out tonight." "Minho, I love you. You love my money. You love this penthouse and the security I provide. You don't love me, because there's nothing here to love." He'd walked past her, so close he could smell her shampoo, that cheap floral scent that somehow made him think of hope. "I don't want a kid. Get rid of it or get out. Those are your options." She'd chosen to get out. He'd watched from his window as she'd left an hour later, one small suitcase holding everything she owned, disappearing into the Seoul night. He'd poured himself whiskey and told himself he'd done the right thing, the safe thing. He'd believed it for almost 6 months. Then the nightmares started. Dreams where he heard a child crying, where he searched empty rooms in an endless house, where Sora looked at him with eyes full of disappointment. He'd wake up gasping, reaching for a woman who wasn't there, mourning a child he'd refused to let exist. His second-in-command, Jiho, had noticed. "You've been distracted, boss. That's dangerous in our line of work." "I'm fine." "You're not. Ever since you fired that girl, don't." Minho's voice had been sharp enough to cut. Don't mention her. But Junho was loyal enough to push. I looked into her. She's working 3 jobs, living in a place that barely qualifies as an apartment, and she's pregnant, Minho. Very pregnant. Minho had thrown Junho out of his office and spent the next 3 hours staring at the city lights, hating himself. He'd wanted to go to her, wanted to fall on his knees and beg forgiveness. But men like him didn't get redemption. They got what they deserved, which was nothing. So he'd stayed away. Even when Junho reported that she'd had the baby, even when he learned it was a boy, even when every instinct screamed at him to go to them, to protect them, to be something other than what he was. He'd stayed away for 2 years. Until tonight. Now, standing in this modest restaurant in a neighborhood far from his usual territory, Minho watched his son, Jiho, he heard Sora call him, and something inside his chest cracked open. The boy was beautiful, small and perfect, with Minho's dark hair and Sora's gentle smile. He was eating noodles with the intense concentration only toddlers possess, occasionally looking up at his mother with complete trust. Sora hadn't seen Minho yet. She was focused entirely on Jiho, her whole world contained in that small person. She looked tired. There were shadows under her eyes that hadn't been there before, and her clothes, while clean, were worn. But she was smiling, genuinely happy in a way Minho had never managed to be. He should leave. He should turn around and walk back into the cold, let them have this peace. His world was violence and blood. They were light and laughter. Some equations didn't balance. But Jiho chose that moment to look up, and his eyes, Minho's eyes, met his father's across the restaurant. The boy tilted his head, curious rather than afraid. Then he smiled, wide and gap-toothed, and waved. Sora followed her son's gaze, and the color drained from her face. Minho watched as every emotion flickered across her features: shock, fear, anger, and something else he couldn't name. She pulled Jiho closer instinctively, protective. Her eyes darted to the exit, calculating escape routes. She'd learned to think like him, he realized. Learned to survive in a world that ate gentle people alive. He raised his hand slowly, showing he meant no threat, and took one careful step forward. Sora stood abruptly, lifting Jiho into her arms. "We're leaving." "Please." The word felt foreign in his mouth. Men like Minho didn't say please. They demanded, commanded, took. "Just 5 minutes." "You gave up your minutes 2 years ago." Her voice was steady, but he could see her hands shaking. "When you told me to get rid of him. When you threw me out like garbage." Every word was a knife, and he deserved every cut. "You're right. I am a coward. But please, let me see him, just for a moment." "Why?" The question cracked like a whip. "So you can reject him to his face this time? So he can grow up knowing his father looked at him and walked away?" Jiho, sensing his mother's distress, began to whimper. He buried his face in her neck, and Minho watched his son hide from him, watched fear replace that innocent smile. Something inside him broke completely. "I'm sorry." The words came out raw, stripped of all the armor he usually wore. "I'm so sorry, Sora. I was wrong. I was terrified and wrong, and I've regretted it every single day since you left." Regret doesn't feed him. Regret doesn't pay rent or buy medicine when he's sick. Sora's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I did this alone. Every sleepless night, every fever, every moment of fear. I did it alone because you couldn't be bothered to be human." "I know." Minho took another step closer, and this time she didn't retreat. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I destroyed any right I had to be in his life, but I'm asking anyway. I'm begging. Let me try to be better. Let me be what he needs. What about what I needed? Her voice broke. I loved you, Minho. I loved you enough to risk everything, to give you everything. And you threw me away the moment I became inconvenient. The restaurant had gone silent. Other diners watched the drama unfold, but Minho couldn't care about witnesses or reputation or any of the things that usually mattered. All he could see was the woman he'd loved and lost, holding the son he'd been too afraid to want. I know, he said again, because what else was there? You deserved better. You deserved everything, and I was too broken to give it to you. And now? Sora's voice was barely a whisper. What's changed? You're still the same man, still living the same life. What happens when your enemies find out about him? When someone decides to use my son, our son, to hurt you? It was the question he'd asked himself 2 years ago, the fear that had made him push her away. But now, looking at Jiho's small face peeking out from Sora's shoulder, Minho realized the answer had changed. Then I'll burn the world down to keep him safe. Simple. Absolute. True. I'll end anyone who even thinks about touching him. I'll walk away from everything I've built if that's what it takes. I'll become someone worthy of being his father, or I'll die trying. Sora searched his face, looking for lies, for manipulation, for any trace of the cold man who'd dismissed her. Whatever she saw made her shoulders sag slightly, exhaustion winning over anger. One chance, she said finally. One. And the first time you hurt him, the first time you make him feel like he's not wanted, we disappear. I've learned how to survive without you, Minho. I can do it again. Relief flooded through him so intensely he had to lock his knees to stay standing. Thank you. She didn't smile. Don't thank me yet. Being a father is harder than running an empire. You don't get to give orders and have them followed. You don't get to control everything. Sometimes you just have to hold him while he cries and hope you're enough. Minho nodded, not trusting his voice. Sora watched him for another long moment, then slowly turned Jiho in her arms so he faced his father. Jiho, she said softly, This is Minho. Can you say hello? The boy studied Minho with solemn intensity. Then, in a voice like bells, he said, Hi. 1 word, 2 letters. It destroyed Minho completely. He'd faced down rival gangs, survived assassination attempts, built an empire on blood and fear. But this tiny person saying hi brought him to his knees, literally. He sank down until he was eye level with his son, not caring that he was kneeling on a dirty restaurant floor, not caring who saw the most powerful man in Seoul brought low by a toddler's greeting. Hi, Jiho, he managed. It's nice to meet you. Jiho reached out one small hand and patted Minho's cheek, the gesture so gentle and trusting it made Minho's eyes burn. Nice, Jiho repeated, then smiled. That smile. That perfect, innocent smile that said this child didn't know about his father's sins, didn't know about the blood on his hands or the darkness in his soul. To Jiho, Minho was just a man kneeling in a restaurant, just someone new to add to his small world. Minho wanted to be worthy of that smile, wanted it with an intensity that terrified him. Can I He looked up at Sora, asking permission for everything. Can I hold him? Sora hesitated, every protective instinct warring with the hope she was trying to suppress. Finally, she nodded and carefully transferred Jiho into Minho's arms. The weight was nothing. Jiho couldn't have been more than 25 pounds, but it felt like holding the entire world. Minho's arms came around his son, and for the first time in 2 years, something inside him settled. This was what had been missing. Not power or money or control. This small person who shared his blood and deserved so much better than what Minho had given. Jiho settled against Minho's chest with easy trust, one hand fisting in his expensive shirt. Hungry, he announced. Minho looked at Sora, lost. She almost smiled. He's always hungry. Growing boy. Can I... Minho swallowed hard. Can I buy him dinner? Buy you both dinner? Please? Sora looked like she wanted to refuse, to maintain her walls, to protect herself from hoping. But she was tired, and Minho could see the calculation in her eyes. Free meal meant saving money for other necessities. Pride warred with practicality, and practicality won. Okay, she said. But we're eating here. No fancy restaurants, no showing off. Here is perfect. And it was. This modest neighborhood restaurant with its worn tables and fluorescent lights was perfect because they were here. They sat, and Minho kept Jiho on his lap while Sora ordered. The boy was warm and solid, real in a way nothing in Minho's life had been for years. He smelled like soap and something sweet, and when he looked up at Minho with those familiar eyes, Minho felt something he'd thought was dead flicker back to life. Hope. The food came, and Minho watched in fascination as Sora expertly fed Jiho while managing her own meal. It was a dance she'd perfected through repetition, efficient and loving. When Jiho got sauce on Minho's shirt, expensive silk that cost more than most people's monthly rent, Minho laughed. Actually laughed. The sound felt rusty, unused, but genuine. Sorry, Sora said automatically, reaching for napkins. Don't be. Minho caught her hand, stopping her. It's just a shirt. Something in her eyes softened. You've changed. No, he said honestly. I'm trying to change. There's a difference. They ate in careful peace, navigating around the enormous weight of everything unsaid. Jiho, oblivious to the tension, chattered happily about his day. Something about birds and a park and a dog that had licked his hand. His vocabulary was limited, but his enthusiasm was boundless. He's perfect, Minho said quietly. Sora's expression turned fierce. He is. And I won't let anyone make him feel less than that. Not even you. I won't, Minho promised. I swear to you, Sora, I'll never make him feel unwanted. I'll never... His voice caught. I'll never do to him what I did to you. She looked away, but not before he saw the tears. You really hurt me, Minho. You made me feel like I was nothing. Like what we had was nothing. It wasn't nothing. The words came out urgent, desperate. It was everything. That's why I pushed you away. I didn't know how to protect something I loved, so I destroyed it first. That's not love. That's fear. You're right. Minho shifted Jiho slightly, the boy now drowsy against his chest. But I want to learn. Teach me how to love him right. Teach me how to be what you both need. Sora was quiet for a long time, watching Jiho drift toward sleep in his father's arms. It's not something you can learn from a book or a lesson. You just have to show up. Every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I can do that. Can you? She leaned forward, intense. Can you really? Because your world is dangerous, Minho. People want to hurt you, and if they know about him, then I'll make sure they can't." His voice turned hard, cold. "Anyone who threatens him will disappear. Completely. I'll make it clear that touching my son means death. Slow death." "And that's exactly what I'm afraid of." Sora's voice broke. "I don't want him growing up in that world. I don't want him to think violence is the answer to everything. I don't want him to become you." The words were meant to wound, and they did. But Minho couldn't argue because she was right. His world was poison. It corrupted everything it touched. How could he be part of Jiho's life without contaminating him? "Then I'll change," he said. "I'll find a way out. You can't just leave." Sora shook her head. "Men like you don't get to retire. You know that." She was right. He'd built his empire by being ruthless, by eliminating rivals, by taking what he wanted. Those same qualities that had made him powerful also made him a prisoner. People in his position didn't walk away. They died in power, or they died trying to leave. But looking at Jiho, feeling his son's breath even and peaceful against his chest, Minho knew he'd find a way. He'd survived impossible odds before. He'd do it again, for them. "Watch me," he said quietly. Something in his tone made Sora really look at him, searching for the truth. Whatever she saw made her expression shift, surprise mixing with cautious hope. "Where are you living?" Minho asked. Junho said, "Junho's been spying on me?" Anger flashed across her face. "No. Yes, I asked him to make sure you were safe, that you had what you needed." Minho met her eyes. "He said you were working 3 jobs, that your apartment was barely habitable." Sora's jaw tightened. "We manage." "You shouldn't have to just manage. Let me help. I don't want your money, Minho. It's not for you. It's for him." Minho looked down at Jiho, now fully asleep, his small hand still clutching Minho's shirt. "He deserves better than barely managing. He deserves everything. What he deserves is a father who's present, who shows up, who loves him." Sora's voice was fierce. "Money can't replace that." "I know, but it can make sure he's safe and warm and fed while I learn how to be that father." Minho paused. "Please, let me do this. Let me provide for him. It's the least I can do." Sora looked torn, pride warring with practicality again. Finally, she nodded slowly. "A better apartment. Nothing extravagant, somewhere safe in a good neighborhood. And I keep working. I won't be dependent on you again." "Whatever you want." "And you visit. Regular visits, scheduled visits. You don't just show up whenever you feel like it. Jiho needs stability, not chaos." "Done." "And if this is some kind of game, if you're doing this to ease your guilt and you're going to disappear again?" "I won't." Minho shifted so he could take her hand, his son sleeping between them. "I swear on everything I am, everything I have, I won't disappear. I'm in this, Sora, for as long as you'll let me be." She looked at their joined hands, at Jiho sleeping peacefully, at the future that was suddenly, terrifyingly possible. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Me too." "What if you hurt him?" "Then you take him and go, and I'll deserve the emptiness." Minho squeezed her hand gently. "But I'm going to try not to. I'm going to try to be better, for him, for you, for the man I should have been 2 years ago." They sat like that, connected by their sleeping son and tentative hope, while the restaurant bustled around them. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning. Finally, Sora pulled her hand back. "It's late. I need to get him home. Let me drive you." "Minho, please, just let me make sure you get home safely." He stood carefully, Jiho still cradled against his chest. "Then I'll leave. I'll wait for you to call me, but let me do this." Sora studied him for a long moment, then nodded. They left the restaurant together, and Minho's driver, who'd been waiting discreetly outside, nearly fell over in shock at seeing his boss carrying a child. The drive to Sora's apartment was silent. Minho looked out the window at the neighborhood. Not the worst he'd seen, but not good either. Buildings with cracked facades, streets that needed repair, the kind of place where people kept their heads down and didn't ask questions. His son lived here, had taken his first steps here, spoken his first words here, learned to be a person in this place that barely qualified as safe. The guilt was crushing. Sora's apartment was a fourth-floor walk-up in a building that smelled of mildew and old cooking. The stairs creaked ominously. The hallway light flickered, and when she unlocked her door, Minho saw a space barely big enough for one person, let alone a woman and a growing child. One room served as bedroom, living room, and kitchen. A bathroom so small you could barely turn around. Windows that didn't quite close properly, letting in the winter cold. Furniture that was old when it was donated, now ancient with use. This was where his son lived. This was what Minho's fear and pride had condemned them to. "Say what you're thinking," Sora said quietly, watching his face. "I'm thinking I'm the worst person alive." Minho looked down at Jiho, still sleeping against his shoulder. "I'm thinking you deserved so much better. And I'm thinking I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to make this right." Sora's expression softened slightly. "It's not as bad as it looks. It's warm, mostly. And it's ours. No one can take it away." "Tomorrow," Minho said, "I'm finding you a better place. Somewhere with heat that works, and windows that close, and a bedroom for Jiho. Don't argue," he added when she opened her mouth. "This isn't negotiable. My son deserves better than this." "Our son," Sora corrected quietly. "Our son." The words felt sacred. "Let me put him to bed?" She hesitated, then nodded, leading him to a corner where a small crib stood. It was clean but worn, the mattress thin, the blankets patched. Minho laid Jiho down with infinite care, terrified of waking him, of losing this perfect moment. Jiho stirred slightly, made a small sound, then settled back into sleep. Minho stood there, just watching him breathe, memorizing every detail. The curve of his cheek, the dark lashes against his skin, the small hands curled into loose fists. "I missed so much," he whispered. Sora came to stand beside him. "You missed his first smile, his first laugh, the first time he rolled over, sat up, stood up. His first word was Mama. His first steps were toward me." Her voice was gentle but firm, making sure he understood what he'd lost. "You missed all of it because you were afraid." "I know." Minho couldn't look away from Jiho. "I can't get that back, but I can be here for everything else, if you'll let me." "I'll let you." Sora touched Jiho's hair, a gesture so loving it made Minho's chest ache. "But you have to promise me something." "Anything." "Promise me you'll keep your world away from him. Whatever you do, whoever you are in your other life, keep it away from our son. He doesn't need to know about violence and danger. He just needs to know he's loved." Minho finally turned to look at her. "I promise. I'll build a wall between my work and my family. I'll make sure he's safe, always. And me? The question was quiet, vulnerable. What about us, Minho? Are we just co-parents? Is that all this is? He wanted to pull her into his arms, to kiss her until she remembered how good they were together, to promise her everything. But he'd lost that right. He'd thrown it away when he'd thrown her away. I don't know, he said honestly. I want everything. I want you and Jiho and a life I don't deserve. But I hurt you. Badly. And I don't expect you to forgive that. So I'll be whatever you need me to be. Co-parent, friend, or, if you can ever trust me again, something more. Sora's eyes shimmered with tears. I loved you so much. When you told me to get rid of him, when you threw me out, it broke something in me. I know. I'm sorry. Let me finish. She took a shaky breath. It broke something in me. But it also made me stronger. I had to be. For him. So I became the person I needed to be. And I don't know if that person can love you again. I don't know if I can trust you not to destroy me a second time. Then I'll wait. Minho reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and wiped a tear from her cheek. I'll wait as long as it takes. I'll prove myself every day. And if you never trust me again, if we never become more than co-parents, I'll accept that. Because having any part of your lives is more than I deserve. She leaned into his touch for just a moment before stepping back. You should go. It's late. He wanted to stay, wanted to sleep on the floor beside Jiho's crib, to be there when his son woke up. But he'd promised to respect her boundaries, so he nodded. I'll call you tomorrow, about the apartment. Okay. He made it to the door before turning back. Sora? Yes? Thank you. For keeping him. For being strong enough to do what I was too weak to do. Thank you for giving him life. She didn't respond, just watched him with those eyes that had once looked at him with love and now showed only careful hope. He left before he could beg to stay, walking down the creaking stairs and out into the cold night. His driver waited by the car, and Minho stood for a moment in the winter air, looking up at Sora's window. A light came on. She was probably getting ready for bed, exhausted from another day of working 3 jobs and raising a son alone. Not alone anymore. He'd make sure of that. Sir? His driver's voice was carefully neutral. Are you all right? I have a son, Minho said, and saying it out loud made it real. I have a son, and I've been a coward. What are you going to do? Minho looked at the building one more time, then got into the car. Everything. I'm going to do everything. The next morning, Minho woke up with purpose for the first time in 2 years. He called Junho before the sun was fully up. I need you to find me an apartment. 3 bedrooms, good neighborhood, safe building, best schools nearby, and I need it by the end of the week. Junho was quiet for a moment. You found them. I found them. And I'm going to be a father, which means some things are going to change around here. What kind of things? Minho looked out at the city waking up below his penthouse. The kind that keep my son safe. Call a meeting, all the lieutenants, today. By noon, Minho sat at the head of a long table, his most trusted men gathered around him. These were the people who'd helped him build his empire, who'd killed and bled for him. They deserved honesty. I have a son, he said without preamble, 2 years old, And as of yesterday, I'm part of his life. The silence was absolute. Then Junho, loyal Junho, smiled. Congratulations, boss. The others murmured agreement, but Minho could see the calculations happening behind their eyes. A child was a weakness, a target, a complication. This changes things, Minho continued. From now on, my priority is keeping him safe, which means we're going to change how we operate. We're pulling back from the riskier operations. We're going legitimate where we can, and anyone who even looks at my family wrong will cease to exist. Completely. Is that clear? Heads nodded, but one man, Taejin, ambitious and dangerous, leaned forward. With respect, boss, going soft now could be seen as weakness. Our rivals will learn very quickly that threatening my son is the last mistake they'll ever make. Minho's voice was cold enough to freeze. I'm not going soft. I'm getting focused. Everything I've built, everything I've done, it was all leading to this. Protecting him, providing for him. And I will burn this entire city to ash before I let anyone hurt him. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. These men had seen Minho angry before, had seen him violent and ruthless. But this was different. This was primal, absolute. Understood, Taejin said quickly. Good, Minho stood. Junho, you're in charge of security. I want eyes on Sora and Jiho at all times. Discreet, but constant. No one gets near them without us knowing. And start looking into our rivals. Anyone who might see this as an opportunity needs to be reminded why that's a bad idea. Already on it, boss. The meeting dispersed, but Junho lingered. You're really doing this, changing everything for them. I should have done it 2 years ago. You were different then. I was a coward then. Minho looked at his second in command, his closest friend. I'm trying to be better now. You will be. Junho clapped him on the shoulder. I've never seen you fail at anything you've set your mind to. You'll figure out how to be a father too. Minho hoped he was right. He spent the next 3 days transforming his life. Junho found an apartment, spacious, safe, in a neighborhood with parks and good schools. Minho hired movers, bought furniture, made sure every detail was perfect. A bedroom for Jiho with toys and books and everything a child could need. A bedroom for Sora with a real bed, soft sheets, privacy. A kitchen that actually worked, windows that closed, heat that flowed. He called Sora on the 3rd day. I found a place. Can I show it to you? She was quiet, then. Okay, but Jiho comes with us. I wouldn't want it any other way. He picked them up in an ordinary car, not his usual luxury vehicle. Jiho was excited to see him, reaching out with a happy, "Hi!" that made Minho's heart clench. Sora was more reserved, watching him with careful eyes. The drive to the new apartment took 20 minutes. It was in a neighborhood Minho had specifically chosen, far from his usual territory, far from anyone who might recognize him. Safe, normal. When Sora saw the building, she went very still. Minho, this is too much. It's not enough. He parked and came around to get Jiho, lifting his son into his arms. The boy immediately grabbed his ear, fascinated. Come see. The apartment was on the 3rd floor, but there was an elevator. Sora didn't speak as they rode up, as Minho unlocked the door as they stepped inside. It was perfect. Hardwood floors, big windows letting in natural light, a living room with comfortable furniture, a kitchen with modern appliances, and down the hall, 2 bedrooms. Jiho squirmed to be put down, and once he was on his feet, he took off running, exploring with the boundless energy of a toddler. Sora followed slowly, touching the walls as if she couldn't believe they were real. "This is too much," she said again, but her voice was weak. "This is what you deserve. What you both deserve." Minho showed her Jiho's room and watched as her eyes filled with tears at the sight of the small bed, the toys, the books. "If it's not right, we can change it. Anything you want." "It's perfect." She turned to him, tears streaming down her face now. "Minho, I can't afford this, even with 3 jobs." "You don't have to afford it. It's mine. I'm giving it to you." "I can't accept." "Yes, you can." He caught her hands gently. "Please, let me do this. Let me give Jiho a safe place to grow up. Let me give you a place where you don't have to work yourself to death just to survive." "I don't want to owe you." "You don't owe me anything. This isn't a transaction. It's what I should have done 2 years ago. It's the bare minimum of what you both deserve." Sora looked around the apartment, at Jiho playing happily in his new room, at the life Minho was offering. "I'm still scared." "I know. What if you change your mind again? What if you decide this is too hard?" "I won't." Minho pulled her closer, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. "I promise you, Sora, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be here for every moment I can. I'm going to be the father Jiho deserves, and I'm going to spend every day proving to you that you can trust me again." She searched his face, looking for lies, for cracks in his resolve. "You hurt me so badly." "I know, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life." "I don't know if I can love you again." "Then I'll love you enough for both of us until you're ready." The words came out raw, honest. "I never stopped, Sora. Even when I pushed you away, even when I tried to convince myself I didn't care, I never stopped loving you." She made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "You have a terrible way of showing it." "I know. I'm learning. Teach me how to do better." For a long moment, she just looked at him. Then, slowly, she leaned forward until her forehead rested against his chest. Not an embrace, not forgiveness, but a beginning. Minho wrapped his arms around her carefully, holding her like she was made of glass, like she might disappear if he held too tight. She didn't pull away. They stood like that while Jiho played, while the afternoon light streamed through the windows, while the future they'd almost lost became possible again. "Okay," Sora whispered finally. "Okay, we'll try this, but slowly, and if you hurt him, I won't. I swear on my life, I won't hurt him, or me, or you." She pulled back to look at him. "I'm going to hold you to that. Please do." They moved in the next week. Minho helped, carrying boxes, assembling furniture, making sure every detail was right. Jiho thought it was all a grand adventure, running from room to room, claiming spaces as his own. Watching his son explore, hearing his laughter echo through rooms that were actually big enough for a child to play in, Minho felt something he'd never experienced before. Peace. Purpose. A reason to be better than he was. He started visiting every day. At first, Sora was tense, watching him like she expected him to disappoint her. But slowly, as days turned into weeks, she began to relax. She saw him show up even when he was tired, even when he had other obligations. She saw him get down on the floor to play with Jiho, his expensive suits getting dirty without complaint. She saw him patient when Jiho had tantrums, gentle when the boy was scared, present in a way she'd never expected. And Jiho fell in love with his father, with the easy, complete trust of a child who knows he's safe. "Dada," he said one day, pointing at Minho, and Sora watched as the most powerful man in Soul's underworld broke down crying. "Say it again," Minho whispered, kneeling in front of his son. "Please, say it again." "Dada!" Jiho threw his arms around Minho's neck, and Minho held him like he was the most precious thing in the world. Because he was. Sora found herself falling again, despite her best efforts to protect her heart. She watched Minho transform from the cold, distant man who'd thrown her out to someone warm and present and trying so hard to be good. She saw him read bedtime stories with different voices for each character. She saw him panic when Jiho got a fever, sitting up all night to make sure he was okay. She saw him learn to braid hair for when Jiho's cousin visited, determined to master every skill a father should have. She saw him try, every single day, to be worthy of the second chance she'd given him. 3 months after they'd moved into the new apartment, Sora woke up to find Minho asleep on her couch. He'd stayed late helping with Jiho, who'd had a nightmare, and had apparently fallen asleep rather than go home. He looked different like this. Younger. The hard edges that usually defined him softened in sleep. She remembered the first time she'd seen him sleep, back when they'd been together before, how she'd marveled that someone so dangerous could look so peaceful. She'd loved him then. She was terrified that she might love him again. As if sensing her gaze, Minho's eyes opened. For a moment, he looked confused, then memory returned and he sat up quickly. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to fall asleep. I should have left." "It's okay." Sora sat down in the chair across from him. "Thank you for staying last night. Jiho was really scared." "Of course. I'll always stay when he needs me." Minho ran a hand through his hair, disheveled and human. "When you need me." "I know." And she did. That was the terrifying part. She knew, bone deep, that he meant it. That he'd changed, or was changing, or was at least trying hard enough that it amounted to the same thing. "Sora." He leaned forward, intense. "I know I said I'd wait, that I'd let you decide when or if we could be more than co-parents. But I need you to know, I'm still in love with you. I never stopped. And if there's any chance, any possibility that you could forgive me enough to try again—" "I'm scared," she interrupted. "I'm so scared, Minho. You destroyed me once. If I let you in again and you change your mind, if you decide this is too hard or too complicated, I don't think I'll survive it." "Then I'll make sure you never have to find out." He moved to kneel in front of her chair, taking her hands. "I'm not going to change my mind. I'm not going to decide this is too hard. You and Jiho are my life now. Everything else is just details." "What about your work? Your empire?" "I'm stepping back, letting Junho handle more, going legitimate where I can." He squeezed her hands gently. "I meant what I said. I'll walk away from everything if that's what it takes to keep you both safe." "And if you can't? If your world won't let you go?" His expression hardened. "Then I'll make sure my world never touches you. I've already put protections in place, guards you don't see, systems to keep you safe. No one will hurt you. I promise." Sora wanted to believe him, wanted it so badly it physically hurt. "I need time." "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." She looked at their joined hands, at this man who'd broken her heart and was now trying to piece it back together. "Ask me again in 6 months. If you're still here, still showing up, still being the father Jiho deserves, ask me again." Hope blazed across his face. "I will be. I'll be here every day. I'll prove it to you." "Okay." She pulled one hand free and touched his face, feeling the stubble on his jaw, the warmth of his skin. Okay. He turned his head to kiss her palm, gentle and reverent. Thank you for the chance, for everything. They stayed like that for a long moment, connected and careful, building something new on the ruins of what they'd lost. The next 6 months were the best and hardest of Minho's life. He showed up every single day, even when business demanded his attention elsewhere. He learned to change diapers and make bottles and sing lullabies. He mastered the art of negotiating with a toddler, discovering that his skills at handling dangerous criminals translated surprisingly well to managing a 2-year-old's tantrums. He also worked tirelessly to separate his legitimate business from his criminal empire. It was dangerous, complicated work. Some of his rivals saw it as weakness and tested his defenses. They learned quickly that while Minho might be going legitimate, he was still the most dangerous man in Seoul. 3 men who tried to use his family as leverage simply disappeared. Their organizations collapsed overnight. The message was clear. Minho's family was untouchable. But he kept that world far from Sora and Jiho. When he was with them, he was just Minho, not a crime boss, not a feared figure, just a man trying to be a good father and earn back the woman he loved. Jiho thrived. He grew taller, started speaking in full sentences, developed a personality that was equal parts Minho's intensity and Sora's gentleness. He loved books and building blocks and the park. He called Minho Dada without hesitation, trusted him completely, loved him with the pure, uncomplicated love of a child. And Sora watched. She saw Minho patient when Jiho spilled juice on his laptop. She saw him cancel important meetings to attend a toddler music class. She saw him research preschools with the same intensity he'd once used to plan criminal operations. She saw him trying, every single day, to be worthy. 6 months to the day after she'd asked him to wait, Minho showed up with flowers and a nervous expression that looked foreign on his usually confident face. "It's been 6 months," he said. "I know." Sora took the flowers, set them aside, and looked at him. Really looked at him. "You've been here every day." "I told you I would be." "You learned to braid hair." "YouTube is very educational." "You cried at Jiho's preschool graduation." "He sang a song. It was very moving." She almost smiled. "You've been a good father." "I'm trying to be." "And you've been patient with me. You haven't pushed, haven't demanded, haven't made me feel guilty for needing time." "You deserved time. You deserved everything." Sora took a deep breath. "Ask me." Minho's eyes widened. "Sora, ask me what you came here to ask." He dropped to his knees right there in her living room and took her hands. "Can we try again? Can you give us, another chance? I love you. I've always loved you. And I want to be not just Jiho's father, but your partner, your husband if you'll have me. I want to build a life with you, a real life, where we're a family, all 3 of us." Tears streamed down Sora's face. "You really hurt me." "I know." "I was so broken when you threw me out." "I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "But you came back." Her voice cracked. "You came back and you stayed, and you proved that you meant it, that you'd changed." "I did. I have. And I'll keep proving it every day for the rest of our lives if you'll let me." She pulled him up, pulled him close, and kissed him. It was desperate and tender, and tasted like tears and hope and second chances. Minho's arms came around her, holding her like she was everything, like he'd never let go again. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Sora whispered, "Yes, yes, we can try again. Yes to all of it." Minho kissed her again, deeper this time, pouring 2 years of regret and longing and love into it. They were so focused on each other that they didn't notice Jiho toddle into the room until he tugged on Minho's pants. "Dada? Mama? Why crying?" They broke apart, laughing through tears, and Minho scooped Jiho up. "Happy crying, buddy. These are happy tears." "Happy?" Jiho looked confused, then decided it didn't matter and hugged them both. "Love, Dada. Love, Mama." "We love you too," Sora said, and looked at Minho. "We love you so much." Minho held them both, his entire world contained in his arms, and felt something settle deep in his chest. This was what he'd been missing. This was what made everything else worthwhile. They got married 3 months later, a small ceremony with just close friends and Junho as best man. Jiho was the ring bearer and took his job very seriously, walking down the aisle with intense concentration while guests tried not to laugh at his adorable focus. When Minho and Sora exchanged vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. They promised to love each other through everything, to be partners, to build a life together. And when Minho said, "I do," he meant it with every fiber of his being. The reception was joyful, full of laughter and dancing and hope. Junho gave a speech about how he'd never seen Minho truly happy until he'd found his family. Sora's friends cried and celebrated, and Jiho danced with his father, standing on Minho's feet while they swayed to music, pure joy on both their faces. Later, when the party was winding down and Jiho was asleep in Junho's arms, Minho and Sora stood together looking at their sleeping son. "I can't believe this is real," Sora whispered. "It's real." Minho pulled her close. "This is our life now, our family. Are you happy?" "Happier than I ever thought possible." He kissed her temple. "You saved me, Sora. You and Jiho. You saved me from becoming something I couldn't come back from. You saved yourself. You chose to change. Only because you gave me a reason to." Minho looked at his son, at his wife, at the life they'd built from ruins and second chances. "Thank you for not giving up on me, for giving me another chance. Thank you for being worth it." They stood there, a family forged from mistakes and redemption, and watched their son sleep. Outside, the city continued its endless motion. But in this moment, in this space, there was only peace. Minho had been right all those months ago. A child changes everything. Jiho had changed him, transformed him from a man ruled by fear into someone capable of love, and in doing so, had given him the life he'd never known he wanted. The life he'd fight to protect with his last breath. The life that made him human again.